Today's episode of the Inside EVs podcast is brought to you by E-Range EV Tyre. E-Range EV tyres are specifically engineered for electric vehicles. Using an advanced manufacturing process called liquid phase mixing, E-Range EV's EcoPoint 3 technology creates a tyre with lower rolling resistance and longer range, while offering low levels of wear and high grip. All this while staying affordable. Go to erangetires.com. That's ERANGE tires.com to find your EV's next set of tyres.
Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast. It's July the 14th, 2023, and this is episode number 171. Thanks for joining us. On today's show, we'll be talking about battery swapping with the CEO of Ample, the debut of the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, and the reveal of the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally, and of course, much, much more. I'm Dominic Ioni, Inside EVs editor and forum moderator. Joining us today is the vivacious Mr. Tom Malogney, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the meticulous Mr. Martin Lee. He will be joining us actually just a bit shortly. He's with the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And of course, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Out of Spec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a growing number of YouTube channels. And we also welcome Khalid Hassouna, co-founder and CEO of Ample, the battery swapping company. So, hey there, everybody. Good to see you all.
Morning. Hey, guys.
All right. So let's kick it off, I guess, talking with our guest. So, Tom, actually, this week you published a video about battery swapping with Ample and wrote up an article on Inside EVs, and it's up there now so people can see. So this was a great opportunity to have Khalid on with us today. And so I guess, so Khalid, let me kick this off. So your company is called Ample, like it's enough, and it's your focus is basically battery swapping infrastructure. So if you were like in an elevator going up like, I don't know, 10, 20 stories with like some sort of billionaire investor sitting there, what's your pitch? What's your your 20-floor pitch?
That's great. Well, if they're a billionaire investor, they're probably going very high, so I have plenty of time.
Right.
So I'll give you a short version. So first, great talking to you guys. I would say that the simple elevator pitch is twofold. One, battery swapping is good because it allows you to move energy physically. It's a very effective way to move energy. It's why gas worked for a long time. The challenge with it was, how do you make it so that it's economic, it's fast, and it doesn't ask too much of the OEMs. So what we do is we do what's called modular battery swapping, which is we swap your battery in and out of the car, but we don't do it in one big piece. We actually break the battery in smaller modular pieces. And hence that allows us to first require much simpler mechanisms to remove the batteries because moving lesser weight, but also allows us to adapt to different kind of vehicles so that the same mechanism can work across all kinds of vehicles in the road. So that's kind of our prime. We do battery swapping. We invented what's called modular battery swapping that allows us to make it as fast, cheap, and convenient as gas.
Dom, let me cut in. The one thing that I found interesting, and I've been following the battery swapping companies since Better Place back in 2008. And there was a lot of reason why they failed in my opinion. They were too early. Number one, you could always tell the pioneers by the arrows in your back. And they couldn't get manufacturers to agree to build a car around their battery. They only were able to get Nissan or Renault to do that. And I spoke to other manufacturers at the time, BMW in particular. I talked to a lot of them, and they said there is no way we will ever let somebody tell us you have to build a car around this. Never happening. So, but what Ample's doing is something different. They're saying we'll build our battery around your car because it's modular. You don't have to change your car at all. Just don't include the battery. Now, I'm sure there's little things they have to do, but they can basically use their system with any existing electric vehicle. So that's what I found interesting. Now, whether or not it works, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but the concept sounds great.
But I'll tell you, Tom, I mean, the fascinating thing, and I think people don't believe us until they come and actually see it for themselves. We've already integrated, I mean, as you can imagine, we're working with more OEMs than we actually have announced, just because there is, like, you have to work through it. You have to do the testing, you have to do validation, you have to do the engineering and all of that. But we're close to making a bunch of announcements. Actually, we've already made a couple, but we're close to making more. But the point I want to make is that in about 20 car models we integrated into that are fully functional, that's swapping and driving, there are existing kind of car models on the road. We have not needed to make a single modification to any one of them. Not a single modification, not a bolt, not a piece of software, not a connector that's different, because we build our system so that we have our modules and we have this adapter plate that has the same shape as the original battery, same connector in the same place, has the same software interface, same mechanical attachment, same structure rigidity. And that flexibility of being able to say, listen, I will adapt my battery to the vehicle and I'll be able to swap it without any change to the vehicle means it just becomes another tire, right? If you think today when you buy a car, you choose which tire you want, and on the factory install a different one. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish with the battery. So that it would give you that ability to swap, which means 5 minutes, 100% energy, very cheaply, just without changing the car. So just kind of adding a bit kind of color to what you described, which is exactly it, right?
So we have one question here, and it kind of, as something that's on my mind as well. So, a question for Ample: what happens with the original battery pack? So, say you get an OEM vehicle, and it comes with a battery inside. So, what happens to that battery? How does it get replaced? Do you produce batteries to fit in that space, or I'm not quite clear on how that all works.
Correct. So from day one, our goal was we don't want to be an aftermarket company, right?
Right.
And the reason is because there's a lot more cars that are going to come on the road that we have on the road. I mean, we're just barely scratching the surface in terms of EV. So we want to focus forward. Like we want to say, the cars that are on the road right now, whoever bought them, hopefully has a strategy for how they're going to charge them. So they don't have an issue. We're not trying to solve their problem. So our goal is you buy the car with the Ample technology from day one. So that's why we're focusing on working with the OEM so that when you buy the vehicle, it already has the Ample system and hence it's swappable. But if there's an already existing, now listen, if there's a battery, we can replace it, but it's just not our focus. We don't want to be in the business of changing batteries on existing cars. We want you to buy a car that's choose the option of swappable car, and that's how you get to it.
Okay.
So you're not buying the battery from day one, basically. You're buying the car without the OEM's battery. You're buying it with Ample's technology.
Exactly. So today, so what we did is we built an EV and we said, hey, this is great. No moving parts or very few moving parts. It's going to live forever. But there's this very expensive part that's 30% of your cost that makes the car a lot more expensive. The moment it goes bad, the whole car is unusable and hence your residual value drops, right? Effectively, kind of after 4 or 5 years, generally the value of most EVs just drop very quickly, mostly because of the battery. So we went and actually turned that model on its head. We said, how about you buy a car completely without the battery? Don't even worry about it. It's just a gas tank, right? You just lease the battery from Ample. And then what that means is few important things. One of them is that your initial cost is a lot lower, and then you just pay for the battery as you use it. The second is you keep getting a good battery for as long as the car runs. So if the car really will run for 20 years, you can keep using it for 20 years. And when you sell it, then the next person is not getting an old battery that's going to have a lot less range because we make sure the range is better. Now here comes the kick, which is actually because we have modular system, we're able to adapt different chemistries to the vehicles. Your range will increase over time because we keep putting better batteries into our system. So what will happen is not that your range will drop, your range will actually improve over time. We already have cars today where we can put more range in cars that are, of course, were released 7, 8 years ago. We're not smarter than OEMs. But if you have an old car, you have old chemistry, we can put new chemistries in it. So over time, your range will actually increase. Not just that you have a lot longer lifetime of the car, but you actually get more usage, more range out of it.
Kyle, you have any questions this morning?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a really interesting concept. I've done battery swap myself, not using an Ample station. I'd love to come film one at some point as soon as possible because I think it's an interesting topic. Yeah, so let's connect on that because I'll come out and we'll film a video. I'd like to see it in practice, but I've used a Neo battery swap, which is a brand specific station, and our audience on YouTube was generally pretty split on the idea. Half the people were like, "Oh, well, that kind of limits you from an engineering perspective because again, they are limited to sort of one form factor of the battery pack." They're once one car is already in the queue, then maybe you should just go DC fast charge your car because then it's 6 minutes a car and now it's closer to 3 minutes a car is my understanding, something like this. What happens, and the other half of the audience, I should say, was this is the coolest thing ever. We need battery swap everywhere. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was actually a great solution for a niche case, which is when you're DC fast charging your car, I typically spend 10 or 15 minutes at a station at most DC charging, but I'm only charging up to 50% or 60%. I'm not getting that 100% charge or 90% charge because most cars, as you all know, has this really extreme charging curve where they don't charge very fast up top. And so the ability to, on a road trip, or if I'm in a city and it's a daily driver or a rideshare vehicle, the ability to, in just a few minutes, get a full charge, to me is very appealing. No matter the technology that enables that, that's a useful function. Now we're getting close to gas. So what happens when you have one of the ample batteries in your vehicle and you decide you don't want to do a battery swap for that particular charge, you want to bring it to a DC fast charger? Because it's technically not the OE battery pack and it's not the cooling systems that were with the car, is the charging curve different? Is the battery controlling its own charging curve through the car's systems? How do you make sure that's all safe and the car still DC fast charges?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, we technically don't allow DC fast charging. And that's not because we can't. I mean, our battery is cooled in the same way. We're plugged into the car, we can plug into the cooling system. Our battery is actually smarter even and knows how to regulate itself. Each module can decide whether it wants to be charged or not. So in a way, we have actually a lot more flexibility. We can direct power a lot differently, etc. So our limitation for DC fast charging is not that we can't do it. It's just we just don't think it's a good idea. We think if you have a better way, listen, if you're charging at home and you drive 30 miles a day and one day you want to take a long trip and you want to have DC fast charge, great, do it. And that's an excellent solution. We should install as many of them as we possibly can to allow that use case. For the rest of the use case in which you live in a big city, which is the majority of humanity at this stage, you are a fleet operator, you live in a condo building, you don't have access to overnight charging or at work, and you drive a large number of miles, except I can go through all of the other use cases that represent 70% of humanity. DC fast charging doesn't work. And if we give you an alternative that gives you 100% charge in 5 minutes, why would you want to spend 15 minutes to get from 10% charge to 50% charge? You see, I mean, because you add up. And one thing people don't think about is every time you go to a charger, you drive for 5 to 10 minutes and you drive 5 to 10 minutes away from it. So if you split your charge over 2 sessions and each one is 15 minutes, you're really talking about an hour charging just to get to 100% charge. And the other aspect of it is the problem is not the battery and can it take it. Most batteries in the market right now can take a lot of fast charge. The problem is, can the grid take it? Can you build it fast enough? Can you build all of the cities? So if you're talking about supplementary service for people who have overnight charging, it's great. We should do it. But if you think about fulfilling all the other use case, you need other solutions. So if we have another solution, our argument is then why would you want to do that if you're going to kill the battery, if it's going to be a lot slower, if you're going to have queuing issues, etc., etc. So in a way, for us, we don't typically allow DC fast charging. But let me go back to the point you made about Neo, because Neo is really, really interesting, right? There's statistics around Neo usage. These guys are not shy about sharing their information, right? And if you take the 100% pie of charging or miles delivered into a Neo vehicle, 20% of it happens at home, right? So that's what you'd expect. Now, look at the other 80%. You'd expect most of it to be DC fast charging, especially in China, when DC fast charging is massively available. Actually, 60% of the 100% happens in swapping, right? So there's a good reason. Like, you're giving people a car, you're saying, listen, you can fast charge it, you can swap it. What do they end up choosing? Obviously, like if I tell you you're going to go somewhere in a few minutes, you're going to get 100% charge, where's it going to stop? you're going to have that issue. Now, the challenge becomes availability of infrastructure, and that's kind of where the business strategy matters. So our approach, and I think we talked about Better Place a little bit, you can't start with consumer because consumer has a much wider use case. Instead, you start with fleets, and that's kind of where we're focusing. We're saying fleets start in cities. They have always a controlled area in which they drive. They have a controlled driving pattern. We effectively, and we're not shy about saying that, we use them as a Trojan horse to create infrastructure. We say, your use case specific, we're perfect for you. We're going to allow you to move to electric very, very quickly. And by doing that, we create infrastructure. Once the infrastructure is there, it becomes easier for other use cases. And you don't need that many gas stations in a city for people to drive on gas, to be honest. I mean, look at any one of the major cities, how many gas stations there are. They're a lot fewer than you think there are.
Yeah.
Because if you drive 2-3 minutes to a gas station, you don't have an issue. So in a way, that's kind of our approach. You start with a fleet, you build infrastructure, it becomes easier for consumers to go there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to follow up and talk to you about the fleets, because I think particularly for fleets, proving this out, and in my opinion, we still need to prove out whether battery swap is going to be accepted in North America. It's accepted in China. As Kyle mentioned, I've been over there too. I've done battery swaps. I talked to NIO customers. I would say at least 75% of the NIO customers I spoke to said the only reason why they got the NIO car is because it has battery swap. And they wouldn't have gotten an EV if it didn't have battery swap. But it is a different market because very few people in China can charge at home. Very few people. And so, I'm still on the fence on whether it's going to really proliferate in North America. But I'm open to testing that out. And I think a great approach that you have is focusing on fleets first. That's proof of concept. Does this work? Are the fleets happy with it? Are rideshare customers happy with it? I know you have a partnership with Uber now, right? And you're doing you have 12 battery swap stations in the ground in the Bay Area. And how many battery swaps? I don't know if you release this information or not, but about how many battery swaps do you do a day and a week out there in those 12 locations?
I mean, at this stage, we do hundreds a week, so it's a pretty actively used set of stations. Yeah, and that's because Uber use case is a very extreme use case. These guys drive a large number of miles. We determined that if we can support Uber, we can support anyone. So that's kind of the approach. But let me touch a little bit on China and the use case. So first, the interesting thing is we know about NIO because NIO is coming to Europe. So it's in the news often. They're luxury car. They're like the Tesla killer. So there's a lot of like cool sentimental things to say about NIO. But there's a silent kind of deployment of battery swapping in China. Almost every EV taxi in Shanghai or Beijing battery swaps. Basic has been installing battery swapping for a long time. And we're talking about tens of thousands of cars that have for years been doing battery swapping, similar to the Uber use case. Now, I think the fundamental difference between China and I'm going to call it a Western economy, right? So if you think about US, South America, Europe, Japan, etc. Let's put Japan in Western, but just in terms of their nature, the way the economy works is that in China it's top down, right? The government says battery swapping is good. We installed as many fast chargers as we can. We realized battery swapping is a work. The incentive is battery swapping, and now you get more tax incentive to buy a battery swapped car in China than you get a fast charge car because the government determined that's an important part of the strategy, right? They can do that. In the US, you can't do that. You can't go to a car company and you say, hey, you're going to do battery swapping, right? So the car company, the economics have to work. It has to be so they can build a car without it. It has to be so that you can build infrastructure across different cars. So it's important for someone from this economy to understand how to take a concept and make it work for this part of the world, for this economy. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're saying you can't have every automaker build their own gas station. This doesn't work. You have to build it so that it's a gas station that's a layer and infrastructure that other kind of innovators can build on top of. And that's kind of what we're taking different than approach. So we needed to do that innovation. There's a lot of technical innovation we needed to do to enable modularity that was necessary for us to be able to make that statement and make it possible. And we're just getting started. Now, one thing I want to take issue with is I don't think a vast majority of drivers actually can charge at home. Like if you look at San Francisco, 65% of people don't have access to overnight charger. You look at Boston, it's a bit worse. You go to London and Paris, it's way worse. You're talking about 85%. So in a way, we kind of think a lot about kind of the suburban use case, which I can't charge and and I drive a limited number of miles. But if you look at the urban centers, San Francisco, Oakland, New York, Chicago, Houston, right? You start in the cities getting to a lot less fewer people having that access. And urban cities is where we need to make the biggest difference. So, but I agree, start with fleets. Ride sharing, last mile delivery, car sharing, municipal fleets are large fleets that have not been able to make the transition. So if you start there, you build infrastructure.
I know we're kind of running up a little bit on time, but I just have a couple questions when it comes to, sort of the business model for what the projected use case will be for when consumer swapping happens, which is we've seen battery leasing in the US briefly with Smart. I think they were the only ones, but it didn't really work because the car would get totaled or someone would sell the car. They had the title, it'd go to the next person. And then they're like, I got the title for this car. You can't have my battery pack. How does that work with our market, our regulations when either the car is in an accident and becomes totaled out, or if the car gets sold with one of your batteries in them and the next owner chooses to basically walk away and to never bring it to another battery swap station?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, when it gets totaled, there's a simple answer. It's just the battery is part of the claim, and the battery is paid out in the same way as the car. I mean, it's the same idea that if you have a car that is leased and it gets totaled, then whoever kind of owns the car gets the benefit. If you have separate, then it gets split in equally. So that kind of works itself out to a great degree. I think when you sell, our battery can be slow charged, and you always have that option. Now, I can't imagine why someone would not want to get 100% charge in 5 minutes and continue not paying a lump sum for the battery. But we give consumers that option. We say, if you want to sell the car and someone wants to just buy off the battery and keep it, then that's an option. Now, of course, there's a lot of details we need to work through. We don't have that offering, so we don't have the exact details, but that's kind of the overall concept. Is the next person buys the car can continue kind of subscribing to the battery, or they could just buy it outright for whatever residual value there is and continue using it.
So in the future with the battery swapping in effect, say you have a contract with a manufacturer, so consumers can buy like your version of the car with your battery in it that can be swapped, but then they can also buy the fixed battery that has the manufacturer's battery in it that can't be swapped.
Correct.
Is that
That's
how
exactly
you
right.
see the future kind of thing?
Yeah. So we actually are now working with a number of car makers where we're literally kind of figuring out the logistics of how we deliver them to their factory so they can get installed. So that when you go order a car, you order the one with the ample option or the order one with a fixed option. So make it as simple as buying a car with choosing a different sound system or a different kind of leather, right?
Alrighty. Well, I mean, this is a huge topic. Actually, there's so much. I'm sure we could talk about this for hours, but we only have you for a short time. I don't know if you have time for one more question.
Sure, I do have time.
Tom, you have something queued up?
Okay.
Well,
one thing I wanted to follow up quickly on, I know I mentioned earlier that I said in China, people can't charge at home like you can in the US. And I agree 100% with what you said. The early adopters all could charge at home. But once we start getting into the majority of people, a high percentage of people won't be able to charge at home. I was just noting that in China, almost nobody can charge at home because they live in these giant apartment complexes. Yeah, they don't own their own homes. So yeah, and it was just, I found it interesting how everybody I talked to was like, that's the only reason why I got this car, because I can do battery swap. I'm not waiting at a charging station. I don't have time to wait anyway. Even fast charging, like this is what I want to do. And I just, that hit me in the face because I had never heard anybody say that. I've been doing electric vehicles for a decade, and I'd never experienced having people say, I wouldn't even consider charging. Like, I just want 5 minutes to have a full tank like I get with gas. So I thought that was super interesting.
Actually, Tom, let me give you one quick anecdote, and I know we're running out of time, and now I'm encroaching on your time. But let me make an interesting thing. To me, there's a very, very interesting parallel, which is scooters. So if you look at places where scooters are used very widely, you would think a scooter is way easier to charge than a car. You literally bring it to your home and plug it in, right? But every time battery swapping is offered, people go for battery swapping. I mean, Gogoro is a massive success in places where it would have been very easy to charge. Why would people swap? So if charging is so much easier, people still do swapping. Imagine when charging is actually more complex. And that's kind of, in my mind, kind of the main argument. Given the ease of just being able to just do this and get 100% charge, why do you ever want to plug and wait, right?
Yeah. Well, the question becomes, Khaled, can we deploy tens of thousands of battery swap stations? I understand in the geofenced areas that we're doing with fleets and ride sharing, but I think that's hard for a lot of people to grasp. Imagining these stations put in everywhere, and
let me give you the quick, at least summary of what we've done, very, very quick, and then I'll let you think about it and decide, right? First, we made them cheap because our robots are small. These things are tens of thousands. They're actually cheaper than a fast charger, right? Price-wise. The second thing, we made them easy to deploy. It takes you months to install a fast charger. We built ours with prefab. We can drop it in 3 days. I mean, you saw them live, right? Like these things come in a container. We just put them in and plug them in. The third thing is that we don't need a lot of power because we're separating. So what we're doing is we're charging the battery slowly, and then when the car comes, we put the energy. So we give you 100% charge in 5 minutes, but we're not requiring 300 kilowatt connection to the grid. So we need a lot less grid power in cities, so we can plug in next to buildings everywhere. So it reduces the complexity. So in a way, instead of saying, okay, it's a big piece of metal, it is complex, we're saying, let's go across all of the reasons why it takes forever to install the infrastructure and make it simpler, cheaper, faster. So in a way, we feel we've done the homework. Now, the interesting thing is to just see it play out. We've done the groundwork and we're going out to deploy. So I hope we can prove it. Now, one thing I have to say is, although maybe my tone didn't convey that, we really don't think charging is competition. We want as many chargers installed as possible. We think the problem is so wide that we just need different solutions to get to 100% electrification. We're just focusing on a big area of it and saying, that's the area we can do the best in and address it. Hopefully people solve the other part of it.
All right. Well, listen, it was great having you on. We appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll have you on some point in the future when you could say we've got 1,000 swap stations installed now and everything's moving along the way we had hoped it would.
So in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Good luck. Yeah, great to hear more about this stuff. And yeah, whenever you want to do a video, let us know. We'll come out and film a battery swap.
Absolutely. Great talking to you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
See you. All right. All right.
That was pretty interesting, actually. That was cool.
Yeah, I think, man, there's a whole lot to this topic that we didn't get a chance. Like people are asking questions, and we just
maybe we'll do a dedicated show at one point and have them on for an hour and just hammer them with question after question. I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns with this. I still have a ton of questions, but I'm not the type of person that just says battery swap sucks. It's not going to work. Let's just push it to the side. I think there's use cases for it, particularly with fleets and ride sharing, like we talked about. Now, whether then that transitions into regular customers, I don't know. But for fleets and ride sharing, it definitely can work. Especially when ride sharing services where people drive a lot of miles in a small area all day, and they want the vehicles to just constantly, they want those cars to be making money for them 24/7.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking there was one good question there about balancing the voltage of, like, if you have a change in just one module, how do you match up the voltages with the other modules? How all that kind of works? It's like kind of a technical question, but it's like one of those little things in my mind. It's just like,
when I was there and I talked to him, he's like, they don't have all their pricing models really worked out for retail customers. But one of the things he talked to me about was like, he was like, look, he goes, a lot of people drive 10 miles a day to work. Right. He's like, but they're lugging around that 100 kilowatt hour battery all week long. What if I could just sell them, 20 kilowatt hours of energy during the weekdays? but then on the weekends give them 100 kilowatt hours because they want to go up to the mountains or whatever. That saves money, and we can pass that along to the customer too. So you can just kind of get the size of battery that you want when you want it.
But Dom's point's really important, and it was one I was thinking about the whole time as well, Dom, which is the car these cars are so complex and they are so over-engineered that any little anomaly in the battery system, the discharge curve, the charging curve, even on AC, if something weird happens, they freak out. And so if you're going to put in a car that is, 380 volts nominal with a 20 kilowatt hour pack that might be only 280 volts nominal, how's it going to handle that? So, it requires huge OE support. I know, they claim they're in talks with a lot of OEs. I personally don't see major existing automakers wanting to give up their car's data so that someone can go battery swap at 12 stations in San Francisco. It doesn't make sense to me at all. But I think for fleets, that's where it does, and that's where maybe it's a fully aftermarket solution I could see. Now he claims that it is going to be a just as easy as ticking a box on a website, and we at least know Fisker's involved with them in some capacity, so that's possible. But Fisker also isn't selling cars here yet, so a long way to go here.
Fisker does claim on their website that you'll be able to order it with Ample's battery swap system first quarter of 24. Now they claim a lot, but that is what they're saying, that in 6 months, 7 months, you'll be able to order a Fisker Ocean either with their battery pack bolted in or with Ample system. So I don't know why any retail customer would do that at this point. It would only be some sort of a fleet customer or something, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm also curious about like battery. If you're only carrying around one or two modules out of like a 6-module system, I'm not sure how many modules they can put in the system. But then I think you could also be power limited because sometimes you need so many kilowatt hours to help you keep your voltages up to get you the amps and you can only take so much out of the pack. It's
handling balance of the car changes, your weight distribution, the whole ESP system has to be calibrated to how many modules you have in your pack. There's so many things.
It's a lot.
That, I'm just thinking, okay, how does Mercedes engineer their cars? And I kind of have a rough idea of how many years it takes them to tune the exact tip in on the steering feel. Once you start moving hundreds or thousands of pounds of material in and out of that car, it really changes its character. So we can go on and on and on with these problems, or maybe this is what Ample is doing, hopefully in the background, and finding solutions to all of these. It would be a lot of work. Maybe there would be some benefit to some consumers, at least here in the US. I feel like, yes, in cities, people are now increasingly getting home charging, and most people live in the suburbs. I don't know the exact numbers, but most people who own electric today, at least, live in a place where they can charge at home. And, that's great. But there are use cases where battery swap makes sense. I really loved it when I did it with the Neo. That was so cool. So I'm not a battery swap hater. I'm super into it.
I used to be back in the day with Better Place. I just couldn't wrap my head around how to scale all the batteries you need for the car, and just having all the manufacturers on board. And it was just so much. And like Tom said, they're really early in the space. Yeah. So, but I see the use case for them here. But
the one last thing before we move on, what I wanted to point out, the reason why I went out to Ample's headquarters and checked out their system is because they just introduced their 2nd generation battery swap system. We didn't even mention that. Their 1st generation is what's in use right now. Okay. And they made a lot of improvements for the 2nd gen system. It swaps it twice as fast. The whole platform rises, and you can get in and out of the car while it's being swapped. The original system that's in use right now, the wheels lift up. So if you would open the door, you'd fall. So it's not really very safe. So they just made a bunch of improvements. And it's also, the new system is a pull through. The other one, you pull in and then you have to back out. So it's they recognize they had some shortcomings on their 1st gen. And they engineered a new system, and it comes in 3 pieces. He mentioned, he can put it together in a couple of days on site. The whole thing gets shipped to the site in 3 pieces that bolt together, which is pretty cool.
Right on. All right. So let's talk about some news and what we've been driving. It's I don't know, what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about some what do you call? What's going on?
Talk about what do you call?
Good wood.
Let's talk about the spicy meatball. That is
Okay.
the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. Also, could you imagine a less sporty letter than N?
I know, right?
Maybe like W would be less, but what is the least sporty letter? Because obviously R, that's sporty. S,
Right.
okay. RS, whoa.
M.
M, yeah, very sporty. But N, not
Right.
sporty
But
somehow.
anyway, so right now the Goodwood Festival of Speed is happening, and there are a bunch of debuts and reveals and things going on there. But I think the big one really for most of us. Oh, Martin's here, and a second. See, he's getting straightened up. Are you ready, Martin? You're gonna come.
Martin has access to get himself in, I think.
Oh, that's true. That's I'm new here. I'm sorry.
Hey guys.
Hello,
Sorry to join so late. I had to watch some 4 and 5 year olds singing some end of term songs, and then I got caught in a downpour on the way back. But so I'm not just posing for the wet look today. I actually got drenched. But so sorry I'm late. Sorry I missed your star guest. But I couldn't miss the kids singing.
Right.
Well, we'll be docking your pay 33%, just so you know.
That's reasonable. One of them was my child, by the way. I didn't just turn up at a random school. Yeah, got any kids I can watch sing?
You guys didn't know when Martin's not doing a podcast, he goes to the schoolyards and watches children.
Yeah. Hey, he wants to sing. He wants to sing for me. Oh man, I'm drenched. I'm drenched as well. But hey, sorry I missed you guys. But yeah, I gather I just got up to speed on what you were talking about. So
that's all right. You got your priorities straight. Family first. All right. So as we were saying, Hyundai just announced or revealed or debuted the Ioniq 5N. So N is the performance sub-brand for Hyundai. So this thing has got 600 horsepower, 545 feet of torque, increases to 641 horsepower and 567 feet of torque when you push the N Grin boost button. So everything on this car has got like a lot of features and modes, and everything has like the letter N in front of it, like the naming, the nomenclature for all the little subsystems, and just everything. It's got its N Grin. Hi. Yeah. So that Grin boost, when pushed, it gives you a higher output, and that's good for like 10 seconds. So the car can do 0 to 62 or 100 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.5 seconds. So it's got many modes. It's got a drag mode and a track mode, and they precondition the battery differently. Track gives you optimal temperatures for the most distance, while drag offers short bursts of total power. Then N Race is a feature with 2 more modes. Endurance mode maximizes the on-track range, and then sprint mode does the opposite, prioritizing full power output. Those 2 things kind of sound the same, like track and drag and endurance and sprint. So I'm really kind of curious. We need to get our hands on one of these things and see what all these little modes kind of do. What else we got? We have an N Drift Optimizer, so it manages multiple vehicle systems to maintain your drift angle. Then if you have trouble getting it into the drift thing, it has what it's called is it torque kick drift. So
you don't need to use their official term, but yes,
right.
It does a simulated clutch dump.
Right. So it simulates the clutch kick action used in rear-wheel drive vehicles. It's got launch control with settings for 3 different levels, traction levels. It was kind of interesting. Like, Kyle, have you seen like launch control with 3 different sort of 3 different ways of doing it?
Every traction control, every launch control is sort of self-learning. So you do one launch on a surface and then it learns it, and you go back and then it'll adapt to that. Yeah, most launch controls work that way. Whether or not they're user selectable, though, that I haven't seen too much, but I've seen plenty of adjustable traction and stability control systems with multiple settings. I'm thinking, Mercedes AMG GT has the little dial on the dash, and the spicy ones. The McLarens, of course, have that similar thing as well.
Right. So this thing also has like a torque distribution system. So with 11 levels of adjustability and electronic limited slip differential. It's got an updated regenerative braking system from the regular car, the non-N car. It's also it can also stop as well as go. It's got 4-piston monoblock front calipers, company's strongest brakes ever, apparently. And so it also has a couple, what do you call, controversial sort of features. It can simulate the feeling of an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. So it kind of, simulates the jolt between gear shifts, controlling the motor's torque output, which is, I don't know how you guys think about it, but. And then it's got also N active sound, which offers 3 different sound themes, like ignition. So that's could sound like the Hyundai's N 2.0 liter turbocharged engine, or has one called Evolution that takes inspiration from the RN22E, which I believe is like, isn't it like a raced up Ioniq 6 kind of thing? I think it crashed actually at Goodwood.
That was the one that went into the barriers, yeah.
Right. And it's got, this final one is kind of weird. So it's called Supersonic Sound Theme. It features variable volume during cornering, and it uses a twin engine fighter jet as its source. I don't, but with cornering sounds, I don't know. So that's
that passes me by, but I think I should at least try it and give it the time of day. But I don't think I'm going to like it.
Right.
I just don't. If you watch the Johnny Smith late break show walk around that he did, he couldn't drive it, but he'd like walk around, and he opened the door and the car was on, because an EV is on, it's on.
Right.
But the dash had a fake rev meter and it was hovering around 500 RPM, and the car was going like it was ticking over. And if you'd blip the throttle, it would was it the Corvette? What was the car that recently had that fake throttle blip that I hated as well? It'll do lift off pops and bangs, and it'll simulate missing a gear shift. And Johnny was really, I know he's obviously standing in front of all the Hyundai PR people and stuff, but in this video he's like, yeah, see how that goes, and he says, you can turn it off if you want. And I sort of thought, well, maybe he's being polite because he's in front, he's been given one of a few people. That sounds like a terrible idea to me. And sure, you can turn it off, but I just think if you want that, just go and buy a track day car for, $5,000, stick it on a trailer and have some proper fun. Is it just me? Go buy a Caterham or something and go burn some fuel and do it properly. Like, it's fine. We still ride horses. We can still go race cars in 15 years' time. If you want that, that's great. But the idea of cutting the motor power every time you change gear, because it's not like a 2-speed gearbox, to try and they said, it's if you're doing spirited driving on track, it will help you because and Carl will know better than all of us, when you're at the limit on a track, you can judge speed through what gear you're in and revs and things like that, and they're like, we're doing it for that reason. It seems not right to do that to an EV. I don't know why we need to mimic combustion world, but maybe give it a chance.
Let me bring up this other thing too. I've got a video clip with it running on the screen, so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. One other thing that's like less controversial that I think Kyle would like is that the seat is lowered about almost 0.79 inches. So I know Kyle likes to sit as low as possible in the car. And I can't remember what you thought about the regular seating position of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, but this is a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, you sit way too high in the standard car, but it just seems like, if we're all giving our impressions now, this is the coolest car of the year. It's like Hummer EV and this, both freaking awesome, wild machines in their own right. And what's really cool about this is it's a hot hatch now that's electric, and it's like crazy hot. I mean, hot hatches with like the Golf R, when that got 300 horsepower, we were like, whoa, 300 horsepower and a hatch that. And let's, I don't even talk about this noise stuff. It's just stupid. You turn all that off anyway. And the simulated transmission, that's dumb. You don't need any of that. And so like maybe they put it in there as a selling point just to, combat sales related things. Everyone's going to turn that off. No one's going to use it. And that's okay. So just turn all that stuff off. But basically, this is the coolest car. Now, I was under the impression that it was supposed to get a torque vectoring rear axle, but everything I've heard is limited slip rear diff, which is what the EV6 GT has. And I was really pleased with what the EV6 GT has. It's locks up as you exit the corner, gets the wheel spin matched up. You're coming out with opposite lock. This has more power, more modes. It's like EV6 GT turned up to 12, and that car was already turned up to 11. So, and it looks amazing. Like everything about this is so cool. I could easily see myself getting one of these and trading in the Model S, because this is just going to be rowdy. It's going to be fun. And that's what I love in a car. You want something a little bit wild. So I can't wait to have a go and to drive it. And, they have a lot of work to do on their software. They claim it's a bigger battery pack than the standard car, 82 kilowatt hours.
It's new chemistry. So it's new chemistry. So it's the same physical, but they've unlocked more. So it's the 77.4 pack. Because I saw that on Johnny's video, and it's a new pack. It's not. Same pack. Well, different chemistry, if you want to say it is new. But they've unlocked more of it and letting you have more of it to get to.
And Johnny also said 350 kilowatt charging, which is not going to be the case, because they always say in their press releases 350 kilowatt charging. They don't charge at 350 kilowatts. It's if you hook it up to a 350 kilowatt charger, which is dumb, because what happens when you hook it up to a 400 kilowatt charger? So they really need to work on their charging speed communication stuff. If it does happen to charge on a at 350 kilowatts, then wow, we've just witnessed, the coolest car ever to exist ever. Interesting about the modes for thermal protection, that they, what I really want is a mode that says, here's everything. Give me a giant temperature bar for the things that I care about, and let me control the temperature heat soak of the vehicle. It's a EV car for performance nerds that should be experts in understanding that inverters get hot, motors get hot, battery gets hot, connections get hot, and let me as the driver drive around those things, and build my skill level at managing EV thermal management, just like you would in a race car, managing your fuel level in an endurance race. And so hopefully that's still in there. If I go to the max mode with like full, power, that I can still control a lot of those things with temperature management. So many questions here, but I could not be more excited about this car. Truly, this is the coolest car to launch in the longest time.
I think there's so many things that you can test for, that you can have this thing for a week and not scratch the surface. I think of the videos that you need to make.
That's
sorry.
Green shot from Johnny's video, so you can do you can do exactly what I think, Kyle, you exactly want to do. Get into the motor, the steering, the suspension. I forget what ELSD is, but everything, and you can have a proper play with it, I think, anyway.
Yeah, no, that really looks like it. So this seems like a pretty good way to set it up. Motor max, suspension max, diff max, ESC all the way off, and then the stupid sounds off.
Yeah.
So that's really, really freaking cool. This is, I cannot, I was telling, because I had the little bit of an early preview on this car, and obviously we couldn't make any videos with it, sadly, but I got to see some of the specs, and I was just like, all my friends that were close, I'm like, don't tell anyone, but this is so freaking cool what's coming out in this car. And we were all just like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever.
But so 0 to 60 in 0 to 62 in 3.5 seconds, is that quick enough though? I mean, that's not even quite as quick as the Model 3 Performance, right?
Oh yeah, that's not what this car is about. It's not straight line. This is all about the corners, the fun, all that stuff. 3.5 second, plenty, sure, but and that's going to be if the battery is warm, if right after a charging session, if you're at high state of charge. It is an electric car for the nerds who know how to optimize it. It's what I said about the EV6 GT. It could be like the worst performance electric car. If you expect to just get in and anytime you get power, and electric cars have limitations, and basically they just let you do everything up to the max, and they give you these limitations, and it's up to the expert user to know how to maximize the car. And I kind of like that, because you got to, it is everything the systems can do, more or less. Meanwhile, the Model S Plaid, no matter what you do, that thing is just fast as hell, because Tesla way overbuilt that system. And so, that's easy performance. This, you got to work for it.
So Bill B earlier asked, what's the price? So we don't know what the price is. The top limited trim is $53,935 with the destination included. This is probably more than that. I don't know.
This is 70.
Is it?
I mean, it's going to be. What is EV6 GT? 67, and this is way more equipment.
Yeah, I guess, right. That's
it's going to be. It's got to be 70 something.
Because EV6 GT, they feel like they've just wound everything up. and it's like that's the car, but there's more power and etc. This is a proper re-engineering, because anyone that was under the impression like, oh, that's the the GT is the hot version of that, and it is ridiculously fast, by the way, for a Kia. This isn't just a carbon copy, or this isn't just adding some more power. This does seem like a complete. The car's longer as well. It's physically wider, so the track is different. It is a re-engineering of the Ioniq 5, and as Kyle says, it's cool as hell.
Okay.
And although 70 grand, it's a huge amount of money, obviously. It's supercar performance for not supercar money.
Right. I mean, well, yeah. I need to see this.
You're a performance electric guy. This car's got, simulated clutch kicks for drifts. It's got all the stuff to give. It looks like it gives you all the temperature data, everything you could ever want.
Cool.
What aren't you liking about it? Because I'm not getting the sense that you're so into this. Is it the price? Because Model 3 Performance, for example, is what, 54? Something like this.
Something like that. It's not crazy expensive.
But this has way more power,
right?
Way more bespoke suspension, way more braking.
That's the interesting part. So I like to see them. I like to see the Model 3 Performance and this on a track together, like a windy, twisty, like a Laguna Seca would be great.
We're going to do that. That's welcome to Out of Spec.
Are we going to Laguna Seca?
I mean, I don't particularly think Laguna Seca is the right track to do that with.
Right.
But yes, we're going to go to a full road course and run lap times.
Road courses. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Just because it is more expensive, so I just wonder if you get the full value. I mean, and it looks awesome, right?
Well, it's also just like every other car is a Model 3 Performance on the road. This is a hatch. Well, it's a totally different kind of car. It's so way cooler, I think, in every way, and it's. Maybe the 0 to 60 isn't going to be as fast, but Model 3 Performance is truly an incredible value for dollar. And it might still end up winning, and I own one. It might still end up winning our comparison. This feels like it's everything about the car is optimized for performance, where Model 3 is just take a standard Model 3 and just turn it up a little bit. And it's truly incredible. For the money, you cannot get a better performing, handling, drivetrain, all that good stuff. Model 3 Performance is the benchmark. It is the M3 of our era. However, this just seems like such a cool, way out of left field, wild box on wheels. It's hard not to love it.
Right. Yeah, the body shape, it has, has a lot of appeal for me too, especially like Race It Up, because it's like an unexpected sort of, look for a racing or racy kind of car. Compared to some of the other things we have coming up here on our list.
I just think Tom's going to slap a nitrous kit to this thing like he did to his old CRX. It may not help him at all with performance, but he's still going to slap a nitrous bottle on it.
I'll figure out a way of putting it on. It'll just feed into the cabin, so we'll all just be laughing.
That's awesome.
So
I love it, by the way. I really haven't chimed in much. I think it's fantastic. I think the noises are silly, but you just turn them off. All the car companies are trying to figure out, what do our performance customers want? Do they want noises? Do they want gear shifting? I think all the companies still have to find their way to figure out, what does electric performance mean? If they want to add this stuff, that's fine, as long as they make it selectable that you can turn it off. I've been an Ioniq 5 fan from the beginning. I've always said I'd take one over the EV6 personally. I just love the styling of it, and now with this performance, that thing's wicked cool. I'd love one of these.
Wicked cool, right on. Watching this footage, actually, it's probably going to be a lot more fun to drive than like the Model 3 Performance with the sliding around. But
you can drift a Model 3 Performance anywhere, anytime.
Can you drift it and like roast the tires at the same time though?
Oh hell yeah!
Because this is like looks like it can do some serious tire roasting.
Everything that it's doing here, a Model 3 can do with a touch of a button.
Okay, and not taking the speed the wheel speed sensors off.
No, it's got track mode.
Okay. Oh, of course. I keep forgetting.
And that's still, I think,
my car doesn't have track mode. So
yeah, track mode's amazing because you can dial in the full handling balance of the car, and it's got all this, simulated vehicle dynamics control that, is like an engineering resource tool to dial in your calibrations that anyone has access to in the car. I mean, the Tesla still is the value for dollar. That's still the car to go for. But if you've already done the Tesla Model 3 performance thing for, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years. I've had this
Right.
car, something like that. Maybe it's time for a little bit. I mean, I'm not getting rid of it, but maybe it's time for something a little bit different.
That's your long-term car. Brian Jackson says, I'll pay an extra 20K for a good seat. Model 3 seats are awful. I totally disagree with that. I love my Model 3 seats, but
Yeah, Model 3 seats, best seat in the automotive business for me.
yeah, I don't know. For me, it works out, but it's like those seats are like subjective, right? Not everybody fits the same way in them or experiences the same kind of comfort levels. But we should probably move on to another vehicles because we've got a few of them to talk about. So if you got the Ford Mustang Mach-E that debuted this morning, so they've come up with a rally-inspired Mustang Mach-E. It's going to be available to order this fall, and it's just debuted this morning at Goodwood Festival of Speed, and it's gone up the driveway there with Ott Tanak, who's the current driver of the M Sport Ford Puma Hybrid Rally 1 entry, and he's a former World Rally champion. This is not a full reveal. That's coming later on, so we don't really have really any information. We just got there's a bit of a video at the top of this, Martin, basically, and I'm not sure. It looks like we have a little bit more, like a higher ride setting. I don't know what's going on with this, Kyle. Can you tell?
Yeah, well, definitely bespoke suspension. Looks like some OE branded OZ wheels, which look incredible. Looking at some maybe ditch lighting or extra lighting up front. It's definitely going to be a GT level powertrain. You can just tell from that front grille, indicating that it's a higher power version. But to be honest, I love everything about this. I love rally. I love sliding around on dirt. I don't love Mach-E in a performance setting because it has such huge limitations to what the power can do. You only get a very short period of time and of performance before it really significantly limits you. So let's hope that this is a way for them to showcase the next generation powertrain tech that hopefully they've been working on in battery tech. Because if we're talking about the Ioniq 5N as the vehicle before this needs to be in that same category. It's going to be for a lot of people. Do you go for Mustang Mach-E Rally or Ioniq 5N? And if the Mustang Rally cannot do, the high power outputs for a long time, to give you the temperature data, to manage the car really well, to give you a lot of controls to handle vehicle yaw angle and adjustable stability control and all of these really important topics, then this car it just needs to be better. And I kind of unfortunately have the sneaking suspicion it's not going to be as spicy as the Ioniq 5N, or not as spicy as it should be to carry this new rally name. And no question you'll be able to do a couple laps sideways and throw some dirt, and that'll be great. But for how long before it starts the thermal limit? I don't know. I have huge issues with the Mach-E as a performance car. I love it as a daily driver. I have one in my driveway right now, actually on test. And so maybe we can talk about that at some point. I've been driving it a little bit, but they just have to, this is their opportunity to show Ford's capability when it comes to powertrains and electric. And let's hope they demonstrate it.
They've got to have learned so much. And this went into production at the end of 2020, not really with customer cars, but 2021 properly. And so they, obviously we know the guys that, here, and they are proper EV people, so it's not like they've spent the last 2 years not learning. So they would have learned a huge amount, probably just watching your videos as well, but from their own testing, and there's got to be some different stuff under the skin. There must be, because the car, this is going to be 3 years after they launched the car. That's a lifetime in EV world. They would have definitely fixed, I think, so many of those. I hope you would, or fixed all those problems you talked about.
Right. They've been making improvements over, the life of the Mustang Mach-E. So this could be, I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed, this addresses some of what you're talking about, Kyle. I wonder if running on back dirt roads, though, maybe it takes a little less, maybe you're generating a little less waste heat, I don't know. You don't think?
No, you're still just as hard on the vehicle. ripping on rally roads. You're wide open throttle coming out of corners. You're standing on the brakes as hard as possible, chucking a car into a corner. The whole thing's moving around. It's very inefficient, of course, and that's because
Sure.
you're really
More
sliding the
friction.
car around. You're using the car as intended, and it just needs the drivetrain to be able to keep up with that. It needs some sort of limited slip diff in the rear. It needs some bigger brakes. It needs hardware, and so let's hope they do it.
It's going to be a fascinating one to watch, because if you watch any kind of rally, but certainly top level at WRC, if you look at the camera they put in the pedal box, and then they overlay that sometimes with the cabin shot, and just with the they're pulling the gears, they've got both feet working in tandem like a ballet, and it's a rally driver, certainly at the top level. There's the new Rally 1 cars, the hybrid Rally 1 cars they use now in WRC, like that is, as Kyle says, just such a full-on level of performance, but also what a great driver can extract from these cars. But I'd certainly have really high hopes that they have. It doesn't look amazing at the moment, but I don't think it's meant to. This isn't the final look, obviously.
Right.
I would, there's also with Goodwood on. There's a million things to look at Goodwood this week, and one of those is MG have bought some bonkers stuff that copies the MG 1980s. Sort of rally cars when they went just insane. So if I was Ford, I'd have been saying, let's just like massive wing and a huge diffuser and a big splitter and just make it look like a cartoon. But
Right.
and they've not done that. So I suspect more will be coming. But engineering wise, like, they know what this car has to deliver from a performance perspective. I suspect they will have fixed it.
And I can't wait to see it. This is Ford's opportunity to show us we get how to do electric powertrains in performance applications. Let's see it. They did the Mach-E 1400. They're out there with a custom, drivetrain in that particular car, but out there drifting around doing showcase. Here's a consumer product. It's not going to be that 1400 or anything crazy with all those little pancake motors lined up. But this thing needs to be next level. It needs to outperform a Tesla Model Y performance with track mode, because ultimately that with a lift kit, you're going to be right up there with each other. This has to be better.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna have a video this week on this vehicle. Hopefully, I'll have some new information coming out. I've been in touch with Ford about the Mach-E Rally, and actually had an opportunity to chat with Darren Palmer for about 10 minutes about it, which I recorded. So I'm going to put that video together, probably be out next week, and maybe we'll learn something new about it.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Looking forward to that. So Martin popped up a little picture of the MG EX4.
That's the MG, which is stupid and brilliant. And I love that, because MG was really cheap cars driven by retired people. It's fine. My mum has one. She has the estate. She's retired. I can say that. But I've got the ZS EV and I drive like I'm retired. And so it's great. This British brand owned by the Chinese could have just carried on making cheap, affordable, like Dacia or something, but they haven't. They've gone, let's do something really bonkers and do this. And I love that. And this isn't going to be on sale, but they did it because they could. And that is just awesome. I love it.
Right. All right, let's talk about another vehicle at Goodwood this week. So, celebrating the 75th anniversary of its first car, the 356 #1 Roadster, Porsche has brought the Vision 357 Speedster EV to Goodwood Festival of Speed. And yeah, it looks, if you can pull up a picture of it, it looks pretty interesting. It's on the chassis of a 718 GT4 Club Sport. And it combines that with the electric motors and battery tech from the Mission R concept. So you can see it's a bit of a play on the original, 356 Roadster. So look at that. Yeah, it's pretty nice. I don't know, Kyle, what do you think about this?
Well, they're only making one of them, sadly.
Okay. Well, next. Okay, but those wheels though.
The wheels are sick. I mean,
yeah,
those are the coolest wheels I've ever seen.
Right. It's a one-seater. I mean, it has an optional second seat there, but like as you said, they're only making one of these, so those details aren't too important. But this also is going to be showcased at the end of September during the Rennsport reunion in the United States at Laguna Seca, we were just mentioning earlier. So if you want to see this in person, you can go to California, just outside of Monterey, and check this out during the Rennsport reunion. That's pretty cool. I like that wheel, or the little the dash thing across the top, the driver's display, instrument cluster. It's like clear see-through plexiglass or whatever is going on there. I dig that. Yeah. All right. What else we got? We got something more. Actually, I find this like a lot more interesting. And Martin, you mentioned this company earlier, Caterham. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so they debuted their Project 5 or Project V. I'm not sure how they say that. Do you know actually?
Oh,
Martin?
I've been calling it Project V, but they might be calling it Project 5.
I know. I've been actually.
I think
I was
it's
thinking.
Project 5.
I've been thinking Project V until just now when I said it. It came out as 5. I don't know why. But yeah, pull up a picture of this because this is like one of my favorite. Like this shot, especially. This is like the shot.
This is this is into production, so not now.
Right.
It's next production next year for a 25 model year. But yeah, this is real. It's a real thing. Caterham known for the like Caterham 7, kind of open wheeled, long, like big bonnet, normally with like I don't know, like a Ford Z-Tech engine or something underneath. But you know, 2-seater, no roof, no doors. So this is definitely a move away from what Caterham would be known for. But it's real. It's a real thing, and it's coming.
Right. Caterham does have an electric version of their 7 that they debuted earlier this year, but this is like you said, a completely different kind of thing. So it's got like a 200 kilowatt motor, so that gives you 268 horsepower. It's rear-wheel drive. Range is 249 miles, probably at WLTP, 400 kilometers, and that's with a 55 kilowatt hour usable battery. And top speed 143, which is plenty fast. 0 to 60 is 4.5, which is like again lower than I'd really kind of want. But like hopefully it's a good handling car because they've really worked hard at keeping the weight light. I believe I have that number here. Yeah, it's targeted to be 2,624 pounds, which in EV world is relatively light. Yeah, it's got a lot of carbon fiber. It's got a carbon fiber and aluminum composite chassis. And yeah, they're going to be making it brought to market, but towards the end of 2025, early 2026, starting price from less than 80,000 pounds, which is like 105,000 US. So not cheap, but I don't know.
So this is what you would know. If I say Caterham, a lot of people would imagine that. So these. Oh, it's the Ford Duratec engine. Yeah, that makes sense. And then just some race stuff. And you see these on a racetrack, and they did like a spec series race. And you can genuinely. I know it's not cheap. Nothing in motorsport is ever cheap, but relatively, if you want to buy a used one of these and take it at the weekends on a trailer and go and have some decent fun, then it is, as motorsport goes, something that the average person can do. And so that's what you would think about Caterham. So to do this, to go electric is brave. And I guess Caterham is where Lotus could have ended up. Lotus had to make a decision of, do we just make 2,000 interesting small lightweight sports cars a year owned by Geely, was probably never going to be the way forward, or do we end up making a sort of 2.5-ton Electra SUV, and that's what they've done. So, but that's what Lotus could have been. They could have been like, well, we're just going to be this small niche, and that's, I don't know, their owners aren't interested in that, but that's what Caterham is.
Right. It's actually, those two brands are really kind of interesting because, well, the Caterham 7 was derived from the Lotus 7 from the 60s, right?
Yeah.
And so they've brought out. So now they've brought out this completely different kind of sports car. And what are Lotus doing? We just had our first drive published on Inside EVs this week, and it's very un-Lotus-like, is what the reviewer said. So Caterham sticking very close to their formula: lightweight, good handling. Some of the power levels are, like you saw, their gas-powered cars. They don't have a lot of them don't have a ton of power. It's not about the power. And so they're really sticking close to their philosophy, whereas Lotus is kind of like, okay, this is like this kind of really heavy SUV. It's got some performance, it's got some looks, but it's not all about the lightness, like there used to be.
Yeah, that's crazy lightweight. You said, relatively lightweight, 2,600 pounds. That's nuts. That's lighter than a BEV i3 with like a 20 kilowatt hour battery pack. So that's they've done a lot. I know it's a small vehicle, but they've done a lot of work to keep the weight down with a 55 kilowatt hour pack coming in at under 3,000 pounds. That's a super job, because it's nearly impossible to get an EV at under 3,000 pounds. I mean, I would venture to guess the Fiat 500e weighs more than 300 pounds. That's a tiny little EV. I could be wrong, but I bet you it does.
Googling now. Fiat.
Yeah, me too. Right, Wikipedia. How heavy is it?
2,500 pounds. So yeah, right in that neighborhood.
How much is the 500e?
Oh, wait a second. I don't know if that's the E or if it's the.
Yeah, I keep finding the normal one as well, not the
Right.
electric. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, and that's exactly what Caterham should be doing. We don't need 150 kilowatt hour battery packs in every car. We don't need every car to charge at 500 kilowatts. We need cars that are fit for purpose.
Right.
And we don't need this to be picking up, my garbage on a Friday morning. We need bin lorries to do that, but you don't take a bin lorry to a track. So we need cars that are fit for purpose. And now that EVs are maturing, we can do more stuff like this. And that wasn't an option 5 years ago when every car company was struggling to get their head around how to make money with the technology available. So exciting that we're now entering this phase, second half of this decade, where we're going to see cars like this that, yeah, they're a bit more interesting and not for everybody, but that's combustion world and it's ending up in EV world. And I love it.
What do you think the chances are of this coming here? I noticed they have a website. It's like caterhamcars.com/US
Maybe.
/ I mean, I don't know. It's just
I-
interesting to have a US website.
Aren't there some rules that under a certain number they haven't got to go through a lot of the kind of paperwork and crash testing and stuff? So if it's small enough, it could be an easy process.
We also have quite a few Caterham cars in the U.S.
Okay.
For
You're on
track,
track, though.
yeah, for track day, but I believe some of them are street legal as well.
Okay.
Mm.
That'd be
This is just stunning. Let's just all appreciate this car. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that side angle, that profile is like, that's so good. All right, so let's talk about what we've been driving this week. I think, or what we've been talking about. Kyle, you had this video this week. I wanted to talk about the best upgrade for your EV, Martian Wheels, now expanding beyond Tesla to every electric car. So aftermarket wheels for electric cars, choices have been kind of slim, and there's pretty few outfits out there making wheels specifically for electric vehicles. But Martian, who is a friend of yours, and I've met him as well. He's a great guy. So yeah, tell us a bit about what they're doing there.
Yeah, so Drew's offering wheels in basically custom sizes. And what he's done is he's already gone through, and we're really lucky. We have access to a lot of electric cars. We've sort of spec'd a lot of the most popular electric car sizing already. And so you'll be able to say, okay, I have a Mustang Mach-E. I want to go for a street setup with maybe some more aero, or you want to go for a really wide track setup, and however you want to do it. Drew will say, okay, well, we have these 2 or 3 sizes that we recommend for Mach-E, and you'll be able to order those wheels directly there. Very similar to like what he's done with Tesla, where he has sort of an aero package, a street package, and a track package. Different wheel sizes for different applications. 3 different wheel styles. The big news here, of course, is the new Rivian specific wheel, a off-road looking wheel. It's called the RV1. This is Gen 1. There's a couple little adaptations that Drew's going to make to it for series production starting very soon. But there's quite a few wheels, I imagine, that people are going to be ordering once it goes live on the Martian Wheels website. They look incredible. They're forged, they're strong, they're light, and they're very reasonably priced for the type of wheel that you get. And I think it enhances the style, of course. So I've been pleased with them. I've had them on my truck now for 2 weeks, and they've been freaking awesome. Just a great wheel. Not really much more to say about this. It's all in the video if you want to learn more about the construction of forged versus cast wheels and the different grade of forged wheels that you can go for. This is really the best way to sum it up. And what I love about working with Drew is, yes, he's a friend of mine, and we actually met doing an ad deal for Out of Spec years ago. One of his, basically his first ever ad deal and our first ever ad deal was pretty much Martian Wheels, somewhere around the beginning. And then, we've just sort of both grown together, which is great. And, what's kind of cool is Drew's really producing an extremely high quality wheel, because he's Drew and very, race focused, and everything has to be down to the, 100th of a gram, whatever it is, to take weight out and increase strength, but at like a cost that's half or less than half of a comparable quality wheel. So it's you didn't want to have the Tesla tax or the Porsche tax type thing. So I'm a huge fan. I would be a customer. I am a customer. I've bought a bunch of his wheels at full price, over the years for my own cars. And it's just great to be able to support Drew, and it's great to have more options for wheels for EV owners.
And I just want to mention your video. You have it's all written down in different chapters. So if you have a car, you want to see what these wheels might look like on that car, you can go through in the description. You can find that chapter for that car and click on it and see what it will look like on your car.
Absolutely. And someone brings up a good point. Yeah, having this connection with Drew is really great for testing purposes. Someone asked for, yes, the same size is available, or excuse me, the same style is available in a multitude of sizes. And so basically having a test, which could be interesting, is go same wheel style, and you can increase width or height. And then you can actually see what the effect is on efficiency or driving performance.
Right. On the Rivian wheels that you have on your car now, I notice there's like a big wide section at the top, which helps with the aerodynamics. Have you noticed any increases in the efficiency?
Are you saying on the Rivian wheels particularly? Yes. Yeah, that has this flat strip. It's hard to say because all of my driving up to this point has been on the 22-inch sport wheels, which are going to be more efficient than 20-inch all-terrain setup. Mostly the tires taking a ton of efficiency out here. So what we've seen Rivian owners talk about is switching actually on the 20-inch wheel to a road tire, like the Nokian 1HT makes a size, for example. That's been a popular swap, and a huge range increase. So basically my truck is set up for maximum inefficiency. We need to see, actually, I bet the Martian wheels are better than stock. We haven't done that back-to-back comparison yet, but I would like to. And I need to do it without my truck because I have all the racks and stuff on it. So I need to get 2 stock trucks and run them side by side. So more testing to do.
Okay. And you also put out your 1-year ownership update for your Tesla Model S Plaid this week. I don't know if you want what you want to say about that. Anything at all? People can look it up and find it. It's on your reviews channel.
Yep, and it's been a rough year with the Plaid. I think everyone knows. Went through an accident. Someone backed into it. Had a lot of rattles. Couple little things. Hadn't really driven it much, but year 2 we're looking forward to some things. We have some upgrades coming, more track focused items on the way, maybe even a wider wheel and tire setup with some R compounds on there to get some real aggressive times. Perhaps maybe even the Tesla Track Pack, depending on a few different things, because I really want the software that Tesla Track Pack gets. You get the cool display, you get the 200 mile an hour. It sounds like it's a different damper setting as well. I don't really want to spend the $20,000 for software. So my theory is maybe if I go for all the hardware, we could, go for the package, you could sell off the hardware, because I like the hardware that I have on my vehicle.
You already upgraded your brakes, right?
Yeah, I already got big ass brakes on this thing. So
and that's one of the things that comes in that package, right?
Yeah, it's a different compound. They use carbon ceramic brakes, which that's where the cost is coming from here. It's ceramics and wheels is where that 20,000, and it's very reasonable for ceramic brakes, truly.
Right.
Maybe that's what we do. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just, it's a lot of money for a very limited use case. So it's unlikely, but it would be cool to at least figure out a way to get that software on this car.
In New Jersey, you can buy a Chevy Bolt for that kind of brake upgrade.
Less than that.
Oh man, that's crazy. See, also, you had this great video too. How much range do you lose with air conditioning in an electric car? So that's a really good topical subject for right now, and it's the summertime, and it's something that I've been wondering. Excuse me, and wanted to do it as well. But you did the actual experiment. 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius. What'd you find?
AC. So I started the video out where a friend of mine was asking, like, how much does air conditioning use? And I was like, oh, I actually don't know the answer to that, because it depends on so many factors, but I'm not even sure the range, because I never think about it. My car climate control is always on, so I just never even think about this stuff. So I ran the most extreme end-to-end test I could think of, which is run my 57.5 mile loop pretty much with air conditioning completely off, no load on the car, and then do the exact same loop again at maximum air conditioning, full speed, full maxi max, everything on. And it was a lot more consumption than I expected, actually. It was 14%.
Okay.
And that's the thing is that's also at highway speed. That's at 80 miles an hour. The slower you go, the more impact you'll have. So, and this is a very efficient car. This is Tesla's newest heat pump tech. So I was like, wow, that's actually significant. Now the real day to day is going to be somewhere in the middle. And I wish I had the time to run like a 72 degree on auto, run, because that's more representative. And it's probably in that 6 to 8% hit, I would imagine, which seems more reasonable to me. But I did not expect that I would be able to get 14% less range by just cranking the AC to max. I can imagine that from a heating perspective, but not from an AC. That was really interesting.
Do you have ceramic, what do you call, tinting on that, on your roof?
Yeah, but that was, we negated any tinting impact. I don't actually, my car's stock. I have tinting on the windows.
Okay.
But by going off and going to full blast, no matter the exterior conditions, no matter if you had tint, that's why I did this, the car's operating at zero or maximum, regardless of tint.
Man. All right. Tom, you have any questions about that?
No, just to say that, well, what Kyle said at the end is probably the most important. The fact that, people aren't going to blast full speed, full fan, often. Maybe when you first get in the car for a couple of minutes, then you drop it down. And I would really expect the average person to see somewhere around 5 or 6% of that's kind of what I've seen across my usage of all different EVs, somewhere in that range, 5-6%. For putting it on 68 degrees, fan speed 2 or whatever, but that's even more than I expected at full blast, to have 14%. I guess, the system just working in overdrive nonstop at that. Did you open the windows? So, I mean, you must have been like an ice box in there.
Well, it was really hot. I was sweating the first run, and then I was freezing the second run. And I had to think about, which way do I want to do this? Do I want to sweat first or freeze first?
Ooh, good question.
I think I would have done it the other way around. I would have frozen myself, then let the heat thaw me out. I think that's how I would have done it.
I did anyway. I cold soaked the cabin before the first run. So I kind of did that, where I drove over to the Charger with the AC seats on, everything maxed out, because I'm like, this is really going to suck. But I didn't realize actually how much it was going to suck. It was fine. Like the first half, I'm like, oh, this is great. Why do we even have fans in cars? And then the second half was like, I'm just dripping sweat. I'm like, what? Why is YouTube so weird that I'm somehow in a hot car driving on a highway and this is work? This is very odd.
I'm just picturing all that. Oh my God.
There's just a couple little things I just want to mention really quick, because I know we're late on time, but I just got back from Detroit. I had a Chevy Bolt in Detroit around for some stuff.
Actually,
rented it from Avis. It was a last minute trip, just needed a quick car. And I just went on Avis and I said, okay, I went to Hertz because I'm a Hertz guy, and they were sold out of cars. I was like, oh crap. Because normally I just get a Tesla from Hertz and I'm happy as a clam. And I always bring my CCS adapter with me so I can charge anywhere. But I went to Avis and they had a Chevy Bolt EUV available. And we were the first ones to rent it. It had just over 200 miles, something like that. Maybe we were the second ones to rent it. Sweet. And we had a blast with this car. It was really wonderful. I went to a ChemPower charging station and charged for the first time in America using a ChemPower station for me. So that was really cool. We have a whole video on that coming. I went to downtown Detroit and screamed at Mary Barra's office, "Don't kill the Bolt." And we did a whole video on how sad it is that this is ending production and how great it is that, consumers have an affordable EV and they're pulling the plug on it. So, that was more of a for the people video. So that was really fun. We literally were screaming in the city of Detroit at the GM towers, and people were looking at us like, who are these guys? About this weird electric car. It was so much fun. Yeah. And it was great. We really enjoyed it. And, it just was really fun. We also did a whole bunch of stuff with Magna and electric powertrains, and we drove some of their new electric powertrains, which are just really next level, incredible, going into an OE product in the next couple of years. And so we're really seeing, the bleeding edge of the automotive industry a few years preview. We'll have plenty of videos on that coming as usual. So someone says they don't watch Kyle videos anymore. That's fine. You listen to the podcast, you get the idea. If you listen to the podcast, you don't have to watch Out of Spec. You get the summary right here. So Yeah, all good. So yeah, we really had a blast. It was so much fun.
Interesting. What did you make very quickly? Sorry, I know we're late, but what did you make of the Kempower stuff? Because you've used it in Europe, right? But this was in the US. First time you've used it over there?
Yeah, first time I've used it in the US, and it's not as cool as Europe because I didn't get the charging curve displays and all that stuff that like the Euro stuff gets. And I don't know if it's because I was trying to remember, how do you get the charging curve in Europe? It comes with a QR code on the charger, and you're able to log into Kempower's site.
It's on the display. There's the basic display, and then I think on the ones I've used, there's like an advanced button or like more info or something. But it's very obvious. It's just a tab. It's not hidden. And then you get the curve, and then there's a QR code. You scan it, and then you can take it on your phone, and you can have a look at it as your car is charging. So.
Yeah, none of that. So that was not in the US version.
A bit weird.
And it was kind of funny because it was like this. My understanding was there was a DC fast charger here, a 50 kilowatt unit, and it was broken or down, and they just needed to get one in. So it's not the best representation of Kempower because it's a single 50 kilowatt dispenser, and they can go much higher power, of course, and do this distributed DC thing. This is a very basic installation, but it's actually at a gun range, which I thought was hilarious. And the overlap of like electric car owners and people going for target practice is like 1%.
No, there'll be some, but
I'm in that 1%. It's 25% of this podcast.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, me too. I mean, I'm always going
50%.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting that because Kempower obviously have their US expansion this year, and all the to access the NEVI funds, all the charger makers will have to make those chargers in the US, and the Tritium stuff announced this week with Hawaii. I don't know if I missed that at the beginning of the podcast, but
nope.
That was okay. Well, I think that was a really big deal, as in all the NEVI funds are coming through now, but Hawaii is the first state to make the announcement of the tritium technology and where they're going in the ground, and they're the first ones out of the gate, which is fantastic news. Using that tritium hardware, which they say was chosen because it's kind of it's Aussie and it's robust and it's hardcore and it's fully sealed, and the air and the climate in Hawaii can the salt air is going to really get to chargers. And
there's no ambient air transfer with tritium. Everything is sealed. Everything
completely.
Is liquid cooled. And we just did a whole deep dive with them at one of the EV shows recently. So talking about the technology with their engineers. And we're actually working on a trip to go to Brisbane to go to their engineering center to showcase, like we did inside ChargePoint. I want to do inside Tritium. And then I want to go to inside Signet and figure out why they've killed all the US charging modules and it's ruining everyone's lives.
Yeah,
that's the way to get an invite.
Good luck with that one.
And so, but the Kempower stuff, I think it's the end of the year or sometime this year when Kempower open their US facility, and they'll all have to make the chargers in North America to access the funds. But I really very highly rate, and I don't know about the whole sealed stuff because anything from spiders to termites will find somewhere warm to go and nest. I don't know if Kempower is exactly is the same, but I do know their hardware is fantastic as an end user to use. It's got that wonderful cable management with the big spring that goes over the top. And a mutual friend of Tom and ours, Jim at National Car Charging, that's already been announced. They're going to be rolling out the Kempower stuff as they do. They're the ones doing the Hawaii installs with Tritium as well, through their Aloha Charge in Hawaii subsidiary.
And
so
Jim's here in Colorado, if I remember correctly. He's not far away from us. So
he's been doing it longer than most, and he knows how to put chargers in the ground. So that NEVI funding is just starting to come through now. There's going to be a wave of announcements, and it's. I was on a webinar this week with some from the government and Jane, who's the head of Tritium there, and there was there's a lot of politics and stuff, and a lot of like, this is that Biden was the most used word on this call, but they really are trying to drive home. I guess you guys are heading towards an election sooner rather than later, really trying to drive home. Right, come on, the money is now turning into real life chargers. So they're going. So it's all. So if anyone watching needs a reminder, 150 kilowatt chargers is what they've gone for, which is probably a sweet spot now. I'm not sure how future proof that is.
Yeah,
well, for Hawaii,
it
works out well because we sent Max on a video not too long ago.
That's true.
And he hit every DC fast charging station on the Big Island, which is pretty much I think it was every DC fast charger in all of Hawaii. Because they're all broken up into these little islands. And he was like, I'm starting the video. And then like 3 hours later, he's like, oh, I filmed everything.
Yeah. And they have gone for a mix of CCS and CHAdeMO, because they said if you look at the installed base of people on the Big Island, at least, it is 51%, I think, have CCS cars, and about another 30% have Nissan Leafs. They're really popular there.
And everywhere in Hawaii.
Yeah. And then the rest of there's about 17% Teslas. So, or that can use the NACS connector. So they said, don't worry. They very much of the same school of thought as Peter Rawlinson. And Tritium was saying, don't worry, a plug is a plug is a plug. Like when it comes time to, we'll go over and we'll swap the plug. And it's, for us, it's not a problem. It's just a hardware change. It's not a fundamental change in our hardware. It's all compatible with NACS, but we have to put charges in the ground this year that will be used by real people. And this is federal funding. So we're not going NACS, which I thought was interesting. But they said, but we will when we're ready.
So Kyle, I wanted to mention also you had a video this week about your Coda, and just for people to watch. I think it's on your out of spec motoring channel. Is that right?
Which video?
Oh, sorry, just a trip going to get the Rivian in the Rivian, going to trailer the Coda back.
Oh yeah, road trips are the motoring channel, absolutely.
All right, so that's up there, and you can watch that. And you also put some new wheels on your Coda, I believe, this week, right?
Just tires. Those are the OE wheels.
Oh, right. That's
amazing.
True.
They are new.
The tires, yeah, they are. I mean, the wheels are new. Yes,
the wheels are new.
The car only had 52 miles on it. And we took it out, and so Colton wouldn't touch this car. He said, that's too nasty. Don't bring it by here.
Oh, really?
He's got a shop. Colton's very, you bring him a Ferrari and he's like, oh, this is disgusting. You should see the squirrels. I mean, this guy finds issues with like the most perfect car. I don't know how he actually like lives. I love Colton to death, but I don't know how he lives through a day, because every car is just destroyed in his eyes. He's such a perfectionist. And so I brought the Coda, I was like, dude, I kind of like need, clean the Coda. This is out of spec detailing. He's like, well, why don't you drop it off somewhere else first for them to do the initial clean? And so that's what I did.
Take it to a car wash.
Yeah, well, 2 shops over, there's a detailing shop, and much lower. Colton's $3,000 to $5,000 for a car.
30 hours.
Yeah, this guy's like $200 to $500 for a car type thing. So we brought it to him. The guy down the street, and he knocked all the spiders off of it and wiped all the surfaces and got the, who knows what kind of nasty stuff was all over the backseat of that car, because someone definitely lived and probably died in it. And look at that thing laying skid marks like a true race car that it is. And so now it's at Colton's, and it's going to go for paint correction and really get it back to its former glory.
Okay, so we're looking at it in the parking lot here. Actually, I got this volume off, but it's squealing its tires. So that's already received one detailing already?
No, this is before it's been washed.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was mostly on the interior. That was the scary part.
Right. Yeah. Right. I hear you.
But it's good now. Colton said like, oh, it's like a fresh, brand new car, nothing to worry about. So really, really happy with that.
Right on. All right, just looking at our time. Anything else?
Still can't believe it was $1.
Oh, right. That's your cheapest car yet. So that's pretty much covers it. There's a couple of things I just wanted to mention real quick. Ford its F-150 prices in certain cities and by different amounts in different cities is kind of odd. I don't know. We have an article up on Inside EVs that you can check out that. I think it's up to like $2,000 off maybe, or $1,500. Some cities only get $1,000 off, but any savings is a savings. And so, yeah, if you're in the market for a Ford F-150 Lightning, now might be the time. I don't know. What else we have? Oh, GM reportedly shipped its first 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV to the US, which is kind of interesting because, like, just last Friday we had an article on Inside EVs that it was delayed, or at least the SS version of the RS. The top performance spec of the Blazer was delayed until next spring instead of this winter. I don't know, Tom. But do you have any ideas about what's going on with that? How they're shipping it now, but then it's not coming till spring?
I really don't have any insight. When we were at the Silverado test drive. I was asking some of the Chevy reps about the Blazer, and
Right.
I couldn't get any real straight answers of when that was going to be in showrooms. They didn't want to talk about it while we're at. Sometimes that's normal. They don't want to talk about other vehicles when you're at certain press drives, but it just, the whole rollout of Ultium products has just been perplexing to me. All of the vehicles. It just seems like there's something going on there that we don't know why everything's being delayed, and you can't get straight answers. It's this is a big thing for GM. This Ultium platform. These vehicles have to, live up to their promise, and it just doesn't seem like they're able to produce them and get them out into the market in any kind of volume yet. And it's starting to be troublesome, but let's see when Blazer is, when they actually do start showing up, and then when Silverado hits, if they're dribbling into showrooms like we're seeing with Hummer and Lyric, then there's something that we don't know about that's not good for GM.
Well, let me see if I can bring up the numbers for Q2, because there we go. So they shipped.
Lyric was up, right?
No, look. So they shipped 15,500 BVs,
right?
Which is fine. Not really. But look, like 2,000 Lyrics and 49 Hummers.
49 numbers.
Same battery capacity as 2,300 Lyrics, by the way.
But and then there's the Bolt. So this goes back to exactly what Kyle just said. Look, and 33,500 Bolts, and that's the one they're killing. So if you are GM and you strip out the Bolt numbers from your quarterly numbers, you're not an EV maker. Like that's, as Tom says, they've got to do something that in the next 6 months of this year, it's got to be night and day by the time they hit January next year. Something has to scale. Blazer, something has to scale, because you take the Bolt numbers out and GM's not an EV maker.
Yeah. Right.
So I saw 3 Blazers yesterday on the road.
Awesome.
Yeah.
EV?
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Well, I was snooping around the GM proving grounds. So we were in, we were like, we had the Bolt, and it had fleet plates, but they weren't GM fleet plates. They were Avis fleet plates. So we just freaking pulled in like nothing. I don't know. I'm so excited. We were ripping in and out of the GM engineering centers, and no one looked at us twice. We're like, look at all these new things. It was
is that a thing in the US where there's certain registration plates that kind of people just sort of wave you through? Oh, they must work here. Because
I mean, like M plates for sure, but also like this was kind of a weird fleet plate, and that's
amazing.
No one looked at us twice. We were just like in the ball.
Just pretend you're supposed to be there, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was great. I mean, we didn't really go anywhere we truly weren't supposed to go, but we did go probably farther than the average person would go. And we saw some great stuff. It was so cool. It was awesome.
If you just behave like when I used to work in the music industry, so many times if they'd forgotten to give me the wrong wristband or the wrong lanyard, and I thought, oh no, I'm gonna come across a security guard who is here for the day and is a job's worth. If you do enough things with enough confidence, sometimes in life, people are like, oh, he's meant to be here. So you just, excuse me, out of my way. I'm gonna go meet a band, and they're like, oh yeah, come through.
Yeah, we did no trespassing, nothing like that. But I did see an Ultium bi-directional charger and got a cool picture of it.
Ooh,
so they had that all set up. That was cool.
Ultium bi-directional. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So it was AC in, DC out.
Oh.
It was like lightning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's just about the end of our time. But I just want to also mention that, because this is kind of could be a big deal, but not yet. But Tesla is said to be plan on making a $24,000 EV at a new factory in India. So basically, they're in talks. They've been talking with India for quite a while, trying to work out how to sell cars in India, and basically they have to build them there, which is fine. That's what the Indian government. That's their bottom line. Basically, they want their people making the cars. So I think they have come to some sort of agreement, and hopefully we'll see some movement on that pretty soon. I think they're looking at like 500,000 units a year, and I think BYD is also trying to make a deal. I saw something really briefly this morning. Hopefully that wasn't under embargo.
No, I saw the same thing a
Okay.
day after Tesla's announcement that BYD was saying the same thing. Look, if you look at labor rates in the places where they're making a lot of EVs, China and Mexico and India, it can certainly be advantageous in some of those places to take advantage of some of those labor rates. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that was very interesting timing with the BYD announcement just after, Tesla finally announced it's, moving ahead, they've reached some sort of, agreement. And all of a sudden, one of the China's biggest EV makers is right in there too, trying to get it going for a piece of that pie. But they'll have to build their cars there as well.
I think they're looking at the Europe as well, not for batteries, but to assemble cars here, which is huge.
Okay. Is that Kyle?
So Tom, to change the topic slightly, you have your Rivian R1S, and we have not received an ownership update at all. How's it going?
Oh God, it's funny. It's not a lot different from the R1T. I think the R1T might have drove a little bit better. The suspension seems a little bit more choppy in the R1S.
Yeah, I would agree.
Other than that, it's feels very much like I'm driving the same vehicle. I haven't really put out anything other than the initial.
I know. I just thought of that.
video.
I was going through your photo. I'm like, where are the Rivian videos?
And how about this? I haven't put a single thing out about the Bolt yet, and I've owned it for like a month. Nothing.
You haven't put a Bolt video up?
Nothing.
That's what you're doing today.
Anybody knows I bought it yet. So I'm just, it's the summer for me, and I take it easy. I've been doing a lot of traveling.
Right.
I'm up in Vermont now. I'm doing a cruise in a couple weeks, so I kind of take it easy over the summer. But I have a lot of content I want to shoot. I have a big list in my room.
Holy
But
smokes.
the Rivian, I have some stuff coming up soon. I had the Lyric last week that I rented, so I put out a couple videos, and I wanted to put that out first. I thought that was a little bit more important. The charging video, which I just put a 20 to 80 out. I've done multiple charging sessions since then on different charging stations. I've recorded a 0 to 100. I'll get that out maybe next week. I actually wanted to do another 0 to 100 just to confirm what happened the first time. But I can't, again, almost like what happened with me with the Hummer. Every time I charge it, I get a different result on different charging stations and different temperatures. I don't have a consistent curve to say, okay, here's the curve. So it's like, okay, this is what I got today, and this is what I got yesterday. And then I went to another charging station at night when it was cool, and this is what I got. So, where are we at? That video is up on Inside EVs. I put it up yesterday, and on my YouTube channel, the 20 to 80. It wasn't terrible. Started off, was chugging along pretty well at like 188 kilowatts, then slowly dropped down to 153, then fell off a cliff to 29 kilowatts for a while, and then slowly worked its way back up. And then boom, went back down to 32 kilowatts, then back. Yeah, that's the charging curve there. Now, if you take away that huge valley in the middle and just kind of connect those lines, it's not bad. It's not great because you're still under 100 kilowatts when you hit 80% state of charge. I'd love to see that curve smooth out a little more and finish up at around 120 or 130 kilowatts. Then you're talking under 30 minutes to get to 80%. This 20 to 80% session took me 40 minutes. Exactly. That's too long. We can't take 40 minutes to add back 60% of the battery.
Right. That's twice as long as it should be.
Yeah. And then I broke it up in every 10-minute interview. If you notice, the first 10 minutes was pretty good. 8 miles per minute added, and we added 24% of the battery. But then that's when you could see almost midway through that second 10-minute clip, you see how it smooths up, the line becomes more horizontal than vertical. That's when it dropped down to the basement. And then you kind of got a consistent for the last half an hour. Look at the percentage added in those three sections. It's nearly identical, 1-2% difference. And that's, for 3/4 of this charging session, I was averaging about 4 miles a minute of charging, which kind of sucks for DC fast charging.
Yeah, that's sorry. I meant to ask you about that Lyric video earlier in the
No,
show.
that's fine. So yeah,
And
so
do-
you know, I still think GM has work to do on Ultium charging characteristics. I don't think they won't get there. I you know, they very well may work things out and kind of smooth things out and improve the charging. But I've kind of saw this with my Hummer EV testing. It was all over the place, up and down and up and down throughout the whole charging session. You know, and I don't know if it's thermal events. I don't know if that's GM's program charging where it wants to temporarily balance cells. You know, I don't know what the deal is. I've asked GM for answers on this. I've sent them copies of my Hummer EV charging recordings and asked for responses, and basically got, oh, yeah, that looks weird. We'll give you another one so you can do it again.
Right.
But this is where I'm at with Lyric right now. And I'm gonna continue to do more charge recordings with it and see if I can get some sort of a consistent, like, overlay them all and then just draw lines in the middle and say this is kind of what you could expect. But like, and this is just me. This is my personal opinion. I want a repeatable charging event for every time I plug in. I'll even sacrifice having it the optimal charging speed a little bit lower if I can just get a charging curve that I can rely on. With my Lightning, honestly, and you guys have seen, I put out those videos, my charging videos, it's repeatable every time. Every time. I know exactly how long I have to be there to plug in. It's a straight line. You know, you get that initial boost, then it drops down, then it's a straight line, almost like Audi, the e-tron is, all the way up to like 76%. And that's what I personally like. I like to know exactly how my car is going to charge. I don't want to wonder, oh, is it going to, you know, do I have 6 minutes at the top rate before it drops down to 30 kilowatts, or do I have 10 minutes today? And I'm just not getting that with any Ultium EV that I charge. I can't get consistent results, and that's not good to me.
Number 1701 just mentioned that you want to charge a Lyric on a DC fast charger that gives the most amps, but mostly these are like 500 amp stations that you're using, probably.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
EV Go station I charge it on. Yeah, Electrify America, and the EA station that I use is one of the only ones in the area that I can rely on. And I don't just rely on it. I confirm. I reached out to Electrify America and said, look, I need to make sure this thing's working at its optimal specs because I'm going to produce videos. They check in the background and they say the last 4 or 5 charging sessions that were performed here before you're coming have all been perfect. You know, we've charged Taycans, we've charged, you know, Ioniq 5s, we've charged iXs, and they all delivered what they were called for. And so I have confidence that this one station I did this charging session on was delivering the power the Lyric was asking for.
Okay. Yeah, as like Gary Clark says, GM charging is consistently inconsistent, except in their speed. So yeah, definitely room for improvement. And go ahead.
And another thing that's interesting, if you notice, almost every manufacturer tells you, gives you a stated time from a starting point to 80%. Like Ford says 15 to 80%. Some BMW, I think, said 20 to 80%. Some give you 10 to 80%. And they're like, this is what you should expect. GM does not give you that at all.
Right.
What they do is they say, in 10 minutes, you can get 75 miles of range, which is exactly what I got with this.
Okay.
But then they don't talk after that. And then they'll throw out, well, in 30 minutes, you can get 175 miles of range. They don't tell you the starting point, the finishing point. Now, it must be at a low starting point. But I think the fact that they don't state a charging time from a set point to 80%, like every other manufacturer does, tells you that they're not confident that their vehicles can produce it consistently. But we'll see.
Interesting.
Kyle should be grabbing a Lyric soon, probably, and doing some recordings on his own. And I love to compare what I do to Kyle. You know, we always are calling each other when we're doing charge recordings and saying, hey, what did you notice this happen, or did you see that? And you know, it'll be interesting to see what he gets on the stations that he charges on.
Well, I don't know. The Lyric's so hard to get from our side. I mean, there's 2 dealers that have offered them to us. One's in Salt Lake, one's in San Jose. And so just depends on which one I can get to first. And, if who's going to let me drive it the lowest. I just wish we had test cars in our fleet.
Yeah. Well, if you want to rent one here in New Jersey, I got a guy that'll rent it to you.
Yeah, that's true. If I was going to Jersey, I would do that.
He actually had, I don't know if I should say this, another car company rented from him and took it for 3 days to do, benchmarking.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay, you're not going to say anything about.
I don't know if I should. It's not.
No,
it's his business, and it might make him look bad.
Yeah,
he puts it on Toro. So
yeah.
All right. So,
Can I say as well, by the way, Tom won social media this week with that picture.
1968. Oh, you're just a toddler, Tom.
The crazy thing is, and this is the truth. You could ask my wife. Every picture we have of me with my grandfather, everyone, not most of them, he is giving me beer.
I love it.
How old am I there? Like 15 months or whatever.
Yeah, maybe 2 years old. I mean, you're on your feet, but is that a Michelob in his hand?
That's a Michelob.
Man, he was a classy guy.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't drinking the Pabst Blue Ribbon back then. I was a Michelob guy.
You're the Michelob, my friend. Oh yeah, as Mark says.
You notice I'm not just taking a little of it. I'm chugging that thing.
You're deep into that bottle.
Oh man, he slept well that night. I love it.
Trained from an early age. That's great.
Jordan asks, "Do you still like domestic?" Jordan asks, "Do you still like domestics, Tom?"
Yeah, sure.
Domestic
absolutely.
beers. Okay.
Daniel says
these. You know what I'm getting more into lately? Now we're really
off the rails, but sure.
Is the hard ciders.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the Stella. Stella hard cider is really good.
Yeah, that is one of the best ones out there for sure.
Okay, I've never had that actually, but
what? You gotta try it. It's great.
Okay, I'm not usually a cider person. I like,
especially in the summer, like sitting outside by the pool. It's if you're like just chilling. I'm starting to get into them.
Okay, I'm deep into the Modelo Especial. That's been my favorite for the last few years, but yeah. So, but I think that brings us to the end of our show. So. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EVs forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. Don't forget you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter and also Threads now. Follow Tom Malogny at Tomalog on Twitter. That's with 2 M's. What are you on Threads, Tom?
Yeah, Tom Malogny. Tom.Malogny.
Tom.Malogny. I think it's pretty easy to find you there. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily on Twitter and also on Threads. Yep. Kyle Connor on Twitter is at It's Kyle Connor. And on your virtual Kyle on Threads and probably Instagram as well, I guess. And I'm at Dominic on Threads. And that's it. Yep. So click I can't even say it. Click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications, and thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you all again next week. Ciao.